a few weeks ago, Maya was like, oh, the Democrats are definitely going to wait for one pay cycle. Other people were saying it too, before they come to any compromise in the most like shortest government shutdown scenario. And so then I put money that it would be longer than I think 15 days, which is not even that long. And now how many days has it been? Like
it's
20?
And like I checked the market today and there's a 70% chance that it's going to be the longest government shutdown.
Oh my God, I saw the Victoria's Secret fantasy bra prediction market.
I saw that too.
Where a lot of people made money because they didn't have one at all. But basically the market had the probability of each individual angel wearing the bra. And so then their like ex-head of ops was like, wait, just bet that none of these people will wear it. And like you'll probably make money even if one of them wears it. But also you might have a huge upside where no one wears it. And the market was basically assuming someone would wear it and not pricing in that there's a chance no one wears it, and then no one wore it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and we have a new Kalshi link where if you trade 100 contracts you get a $40 bonus, which is pretty good. So if you want to make an account, the link is in our description.
Yeah, code get the check.
Yeah, or you can just use the link.
Wait, isn't it so fire? It's get the check. Because like when you're like signing up for Kalshi, you're like, if you bet right, you're literally getting your check. Yeah. Well, should we get on into the episode?
Yeah.
Welcome back to Get the Check. I'm Maya.
I'm Annika.
I'm Priya.
And today our lineup, it's like football. Our lineup, we're going to be talking about the new export controls that China put on for rare earth minerals. Then we're going into Anduril EagleEye. It's like this headset, or not even headset, it's this helmet that like tells you everything around yourself. So it's for the military, and it literally feels like you're in a video game. So you can like shoot here, or like, sorry, maybe that's like a lot, but
no,
yeah.
That is what it is.
That is what it is. And then finally,
Maya's saying sorry, like she created it.
And then finally, for our last segment, which is our Get the Check segment, we're going to be covering Zepto, which is essentially the Indian GoPuff. But yeah,
happy Diwali.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, happy
Diwali. I was about to say, and it's the week of Diwali.
Oh.
No one invited me to a Diwali party.
Oh, I got invited
to the point that I was telling my Asian friend about this, and then she was like, "Oh, like I'm invited to one. You can come." And I was like, "Oh, that's so sweet." And I was like, "This is my Asian friends are invited to more Indian things than me." So
but that honestly makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Also, her fiance's Indian, so
yeah.
I'm actually surprised no one in our group threw a Diwali party. Maybe it's because we're all going home, honestly.
Yeah,
that's probably what it is. Yeah. Okay, well, should we get into rare earth minerals?
Yeah, so on October 9th, China announced new export controls on rare earths. So they added an additional 5 to the 7 that they already put on export controls back in April. And in addition to that, there's also like new licenses required for export. So you also have to say like what you're going to be using these rare earths for. And there's just like a generally expanded scope of control under like the Chinese government because they want to know what's going on. And in response, Trump threatened to impose an additional 100% tariffs on China. And like, the tariffs have gone back and forth, but there never has actually been a conclusion on like what the tariffs on China are going to be. So that's something that still needs to get figured out. And they're basically at a stalemate now. So that's like the TLDR of what we're going to talk about today.
Xi Jinping and Trump are planning to meet towards the end of the month. So that'll be a fun mention market on Kalshi, I feel like, of what words they'll say.
So the reason they're going to meet later this month is because it's APEC, which is like the conference that happens once a year. And it's basically a group of like a bunch of countries that talk about like economic control and like growth and stuff like that. And so they're meeting in South Korea this year at the end of October.
Yeah. And so a quick background on what rare earths even are. They are chemical elements, and they're basically very important for modern technologies. So it's everything from needed to make your phone and consumer electronics, but also military devices because it's used in like radar technology and a lot of our other military technology.
And rare earth minerals are not actually rare. They're just really hard to produce. So they're found in Brazil, India, Australia, US, and China. China doesn't actually own the whole supply. Like we could produce rare earth minerals if we wanted to. It's just that the environmental effects are quite high and China sells them for so cheap. So we're willing to import them.
Yeah.
And in terms of dominance, China is 60 to 70% of the mining of world's rare earths, and they refine over 90% of them. So not only do you need to have the supply of the actual minerals, which to Maya's point, like does exist in other places, but you have to have the ability to refine them, which China more or less has a monopoly over today.
Yeah, so in the 1980s, there's basically a mountain pass mine in California, and that's where a lot of the US supply is. And we were mining rare earths, but then basically they were really expensive to produce, and like Maya said, had a lot of bad environmental impacts. Some people even considered it radioactive, and there's a lot of high regulations of radioactive materials. Although now I think people have gone back on that and said they're not actually radioactive. But basically, that causes this area to shut down in the 2000s. And then China, being China, saw a little opening in the market, and they basically imported a ton of rare earth processing capabilities from the US and Europe. And it kind of sounds like we basically let them.
Yeah.
Because we were down.
totally fine with it.
We were like,
Yeah.
sure, pollute your air, just don't pollute
Yeah.
ours.
Yeah.
Literally.
But they clearly had a very intentional approach to it, because not only did they import our methodologies, but they basically started putting a ton of investment into professors, universities, like people learning how to mine them, and just like this entire supply chain. And in the beginning, they were actually a lot worse at it than us. And I was reading some paper of people being like, they were not like doing it efficiently, and like they had to like restart different batches because they didn't have good systems in place. But then they basically optimized it over a period of time. Meanwhile, everyone in the US that knew how to do the same thing basically aged out of it, because we stopped doing it like 25 years ago.
Yeah. And then at some point in 2008, we actually did try to bring it back, because they were like, oh, shoot, we're actually losing control to China. And this like could become a big issue, which we now see that it has become a big issue. But they like really struggled at the time, because since China had optimized it, they like drove the prices down so much that the US just couldn't compete on price at all. And so even though they tried to revive it in 2008, I think it was by 2014, they filed for bankruptcy again. And so any like resurgence of it just like hasn't worked in the US.
Yeah. I was reading some of the interviews with Chinese officials, and in 1992, one of them was like, the Middle East has oil, but we have rare earths. And so it's interesting, because actually in high school, I remember reading a lot about the importance of rare earths, and like in debate, we would run a lot of arguments that were like, basically a lot of the trade war impacts of like not having free trade was all rare earths. Like it was the effect that would have on the global economy. So it is interesting that like this has been something brought up again and again, and we still haven't solved it. Like, I'm surprised at no point where we like, oh, we should solve this.
Well, I think in 2008 we wanted to.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like we tried hard enough. Like,
Yeah, maybe.
like basically the problem you're outlining is like now getting fixed. So like MP is the biggest US company that produces rare earth minerals, but they give a lot of the rare earths they produce back to China to process them, because like we've said, like the US doesn't have good processing capabilities. But now the United States is like striking deals. I think one of them is worth like $300 million to basically just subsidize MP so that they can compete on a global playing field. And I'm surprised we just didn't do that earlier.
I think that it's because we also hold control of other things. So one is that we hold control in our chip manufacturing power. For example, we put a lot of restrictions on exporting chips like from NVIDIA, AMD to China, because we were worried about them getting access to that technology. So I think like there is always a balance between like what's worth actually doing in-house and what's worth giving up the power for. And I think that I'm sure a lot of political power thought that we maintained enough control over other things that it's not something that would be exploited against us. Also, the Pentagon is stockpiling $1 billion in critical minerals. So this is 500 million in cobalt, 245 in antimony, 100 in tantalum, and 45 in scandium.
Yeah, it seems like they're mainly stockpiling it from allies like Canada and Norway, which makes sense, but doesn't really solve the
problem long term.
Because like China's been exploiting rare earth minerals against people for like a long time. Not to like beat a dead horse, but I would still think that we would try to build our own capabilities. Like the fact that China depends on us for stuff isn't a reason why we shouldn't stop depending on China for stuff, right?
I disagree, because I think if you try to build those capabilities and you fail, but you know that you still have like a huge power against them, you're not going to try again.
I guess.
Like, I think it's part of like also the manufacturing narrative too, that it doesn't like, it's convenient to take the cheap price. Like it is
No, but I think there's a big difference between taking like cheaply manufactured goods from China versus
I'm not like comparing it to manufactured goods. I'm saying the rare earth mineral price is cheap.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like if there's an industry that we use in our military technology, I don't think at that point it's about price. Like, it's economically and militarily strategic. So it's like way bigger than like how many dollars we're paying for something. Because now also, I think I said 300 million before, but it's 400 million before. But now we're taking like a $400 million stake in MP.
Because if we needed to make it ourselves, we would. It would just be super expensive.
But now we're super behind. Like, we don't have like the researchers, we don't have the scientists. Like, it's not like we can just like get up now and with these $400 million like start producing it. Like, we have a pretty uphill battle in like creating the supply chain.
For sure. I guess I was reading some like estimates on some substacks that like the battle would be like a 2 to 3 year timeline though.
But we like don't have 2 to 3 years to not have access to rare earth minerals.
Yeah, that's true. And that's what like the people in the military were saying too. Like all the people were basically like, we can't afford to be behind in the military like at all. But I guess like my question on this conversation is, has it ever been this big of a point in the last like 10 years where we were this concerned about it?
No, I guess like maybe like the rise of AI has made tensions with China worse.
Yeah. Because I feel like it makes sense that we haven't invested in this in the past because we didn't have a reason to. Like, that's the way that like global trade works.
But it's definitely been like probably the number one thing we're concerned about in terms of like our relationship falling apart. Maybe we've never been this concerned before, but I know in 2010 it was a big issue because they did cut off their REM supply from Japan. And that was because they were in like a maritime skirmish with Japan, and it had spillover effects to Europe and the US. And then there was another set of arguments in like 2019 and 2021 where there were tariffs under the first Trump administration, and there were like different delays and quota issues, and it didn't get like as bad as it is right now, but we definitely recognized it as an issue.
Yeah, I actually think there's another piece at play that I read about, but I don't know how critical it is. So in Spruce Pine, North Carolina, it's critically important for supplying 70 to 90% of the world's ultra pure quartz, which is an ingredient for making silicon wafers. And that is shipped also all around the world. And obviously we know silicon wafers are the foundational material for chips in electronics, smartphones, computers, and solar cells. So all of the quartz from Spruce Pine is very reliable, and it's very hard to substitute. And so if we were to cut off the exports from this, it would also disrupt China, and it's almost as significantly as China's rare earth export controls too. This hasn't been covered a lot in the news, but I've read a couple of like articles talking about this. So I wonder if this is also something else that we have in the back pocket that we can pull out if we wanted to.
Yeah, and I also read a good amount of articles saying that China is not doing well in like our current tariffs that we have imposed. Like I read this one piece by Robin Brooks from Brookings, kind of funny, Brooks from Brookings. But basically he said that Chinese exports have stayed the same post-US tariffs, which means they haven't like dropped because of our tariffs, but they're either A, going to developing countries or other countries, which means they're probably getting sold at a lower price because that's why they weren't getting sold to them before. Or so like their margins are getting undercut. Or B, they're still getting to the US but through another country first, so their shipping costs are going up. Higher. And so either way, we are successfully cutting China's margins. But I think big picture, China's economy is like bigger than ours in real dollar terms, and our military is better, but they've also done a really good job investing in a lot of research and technology. Meanwhile, like honestly, under Trump, we've cut a lot of our research and technology, although I don't think in like key military fields, but just like overall. And so I would still see us as ahead, but not by like the margin that if I was the president, I would be comfortable with, I guess is my take.
Yeah, I think the other thing on our side is our allies.
Yeah, but there's a lot of interesting literature about that, which is like Trump has undermined all of our relationships with our allies. My perspective on this is like, I think a lot of traditional liberals are like, Trump has done such a horrible job, and there's so many things you can point to, like the way he talks about people, like him threatening to remove military funding, like all of these things. But then I do kind of see the conservative perspective on this, which is like, what does it really matter? Like they're still gonna, in a lot of situations, do what we want because we are so powerful and we are still their security umbrella. And you can kind of see this with Australia, where like their treasurer basically asked Washington like what they could do to basically help America.
We'll do anything for you.
No, I was gonna say they have 43 of the 55 minerals critical to us, and they hold 680 deposits aligned with the U.S. critical minerals list, which is 90% open for U.S. investment. So they've basically just gone to the U.S. and been like, please please buy our minerals, which is what the U.S. is going to do
this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trump is meeting with Australia this week, and they are expected to talk about the focus on like mining and also investment in like how are they going to actually process these minerals, because that is really important. And they're planning to formalize some U.S. equity participation. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like.
Yeah, and they've been talking about a fund that'll be like around $700 to $800 million. And I think the goal there is basically just like some of these Australian companies don't have the capital and we're willing to give them the capital. And then a lot of those partnerships are either with the U.S. government or even U.S. companies. Like, for example, there's a firm, Novaleon Magnetics, that's partnering with an Australian company called Lynas Rare Earths. I'm probably butchering all these names, but the TLDR is like these contracts specifically outline that it's for American military purposes, which makes sense because I think we see that long term China is not going to be willing to probably help us on some of this defense stuff. And like to our earlier conversation about like, has it been this bad before? Could we have foreseen this? Like, I think when it comes to the military, like, things are still not that bad, right? Like, we're in a trade war with China, but we're not in any type of military conflict.
Yeah.
But if that day ever comes, even if it's like a proxy war in the South China Sea or related to Taiwan, like, you can't wait for things to be that bad.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think like it seems like the military up until this point has been supplied with the things that they need.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like they've been like, we're not getting what access to like what we need. But based on all the news articles that I was reading about this in particular, people are actually concerned that this will set us back because there are increased tensions between us and China. And at the same time, like they are spending time focusing on their military. And so if we don't do the same, then like we could be behind.
Cool. Well, speaking of the military, our next topic is about the military.
Yeah. So Anduril announced EagleEye, which is essentially this like superhuman vision type helmet. You put this like helmet on and you basically have a bunch of sensors detecting everything around you, so you can see like aircraft, satellites, even your teammates and their targets, people behind walls. It's like a 360 degree view, and so the idea is that you're enhanced with supervision, so when someone's coming in, the helmet tells you how to react and essentially point and shoot. And so you can think of it as a very video game-esque assisted real-time decision-making system that helps you. It's actually really interesting because many video games and even sci-fi fantasies like movies, novels have always wanted to go after something like this. And I would say like Anduril's EagleEye is the closest thing we've come to it.
It's the American dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for a little bit of history, Anduril was obviously founded by Palmer Luckey, who's pretty eccentric. His interviews are fun to listen to if you haven't before. We've covered this story, but it's worth telling again because basically he has this VR company called Oculus, and back when Meta was really bullish on AR VR, I would say they still are compared to other big tech companies, they acquire it in 2014. He was really young at the time. He actually becomes like one of the youngest founders ever acquired for what was, I think he's acquired for like $2 billion.
Yeah.
He starts working at Meta and he has like a big personality, and at the time ends up being a really early pro-Trump supporter in like 2016. And then Meta pushes him out, and it's been pretty confirmed that Meta basically pushed him out partially on his political views, which is so ironic now that like Zuck and everyone else are like the biggest Trump glazers ever. But he was literally just like ahead of his time. Not that I support Trump, but like you have to recognize when someone was just years ahead of things.
It's so funny. Like him and Jason get into like really public Twitter arguments.
Yeah, they do. They're insane.
Well, because Jason like
understand
flamed
why.
him. Jason flamed Palmer Luckey, and then it's like been trying to get him on the pod, and like Palmer Luckey's like, fuck you. Like,
Yeah.
you've like always been shitty to me, and now that you finally like me because of what I'm doing, like you don't just get to like run my name through the mud and then say, hey, come on the pod. you
Yeah,
know?
Palmer Luckey's a really impressive person. Like, I'm personally against building, like, I just am a pacifist, so I'm personally against Anduril.
Yeah.
But, like, well, I just want to be careful because I feel like you can respect someone as a founder and respect what they're building, but, like, not respect the impact.
Yeah.
Not even, like, I get why we need military technology, but, like, I just You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, like when you hear him talk and stuff, it's insane. Like he basically turned an entire industry, which is military technology, into like a completely modernized industry. It's like what he's doing with Anduril.
No,
which
it's so impressive.
He only founded because Zuck pushed him out of Meta. And now like Zuck's partnering with him on basically his products because Meta's like AR VR technology is used in EagleEye. And yeah, I just find the whole thing funny. But
he made his way back home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. I was looking at a graph of defense spending in like contractors versus tech companies, and basically this year like the two lines have merged.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's cool. But yeah, the U.S. military has gone after this for so long. So they had many different programs: Future Warrior, Land Warrior, Connected Soldier. These all were started in the early 90s, and at the time they never really worked because the hardware was pretty unreliable. So like the systems crashed. Batteries were also really heavy. If you think about it, like in the early 90s, we don't even have good smartphones at this point. So thinking that you could like go after something like this, to me seems crazy. But I guess at the time they probably thought it was possible to some extent. But obviously it didn't work. And they spent like a couple billion, I think $3.5 billion total by the end of like 2007. And so they terminate that and they're like, okay, we're not going to go after this. Then there's a renewed like interest, and they start the IVAS program, which stands for Integrated Visual Augmentation System. And it's a $22 billion 10-year contract that people are bidding on. And this contract is also right around the time that Anduril gets founded. And Palmer Luckey is like, oh my God, I want this contract, but obviously can't bid for it because he's only like a 10-person company. And so Microsoft wins this contract because they have this thing called HoloLens 2, which is a commercial headset. And so they're basically pitching that they can turn this into a military contract.
I used to work in that building.
Really?
Oh, really? Yeah, in Seattle.
Oh, that's so cool. And so obviously it's like the same vision, like night vision, 3D maps, assistance to all sort of extents. And it also fails. Everyone says, yeah, nauseous, dizziness, eye strain.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
Also, like latency is also a concern.
Yeah.
Like I feel like when you're putting something to augment a real person's vision, like that is the most important thing, because even if you're a second off, that's way too much time.
For sure.
There was a quote that said, quote, soldiers hit fewer targets with IVAS than with their current equipment.
Yeah.
I was like, that's insane.
Yeah. No, it's so bad.
Because the current equipment is like very archaic. Like I was looking into the current equipment and it's basically like radio systems, and literally like sometimes when they're trying to show people like targets and stuff, they'll use like lasers with each other. Like it's a very archaic system.
It's crazy that they spent $22 billion on this.
Well, that
was
was like the potential of like how much it could have been if they accomplished like all of the targets,
okay.
But it never actually got to that point. So like when Microsoft won the prototyping contract in 2018, that was a $480 million contract, and the agreement could have been worth up to $22 billion over the next 10 years, given that they delivered 120,000 headsets that were like in production. But then I don't know what the exact number is. I don't think they ever actually got to that amount because they did the prototyping. It was like fine. And so then they actually like did move into production with like a new form factor and all of these things. But then like it never actually worked. And so I'm sure that like it wasn't upwards of like a few billion max that they ended up like actually giving towards it.
The government also just drains money on shit.
Yeah. I mean that too.
Yeah.
But then even like now when they're moving ahead, so like they're moving ahead with like this Anduril contract, and basically Anduril won the prototyping contract, and like Microsoft is still involved, but they're a subcontractor. And so they're not like the ones leading the charge anymore.
But basically Microsoft gives it to Anduril.
Well, Anduril also started working on this like when they were founded. Like when Palmer Luckey wanted the contract, which I think is like his whole approach to military tech, is he's building it like a tech company where like you create a product and you sell it to customers versus the way everyone else has done it is you bid for a contract, you get that contract, then you start building, then you slowly keep going back to the military saying, actually, it's not built and we need more money for like 10 years. And I feel like no one has ever questioned it because there was never an alternative, and you need the shit to get built. So
What I was going to say is that this contract is only $159 million for the rapid prototyping phase of it. So like we're still very early on, and I feel like there's like so much money still left to be given.
But I think the secret power that Anduril has here is not even the headset, it's actually lattice. So Anduril already works with the military to develop weapons and like drones for the military, and they created the system called Lattice, which essentially takes in all of the data from all different sensors, so drones, ground sensors, radars, cameras, satellites, and creates an entire digital twin of the world, but in the military view. And then this system integrates into all of Anduril's like weapons. And so the idea is that you have all of this information from the entire like military base of technology integrated at all these different points of your like any tech that you're using. And so because they've built a digital twin of what the military knows, they can now use Lattice in every sense. And this works really well when you're pairing it with EagleEye, because the idea is like, if I see something and someone else is next to me, but they can't see what I'm seeing, they're now going to be able to see what I see because it's going into Lattice. Yeah, you have eyes everywhere, and it's going into Lattice. And that's, I think, like what Palmer's Lucky's take on why EagleEye will be better than all of the rest is because you finally have one backend system that actually has like a superhuman type of view, because it literally has all data from all points that they're integrated in.
Yeah. I mean, being able to have like a single layer of integration is so impressive, because to Annika's point, like the military is so archaic. Like the technology they're using, a lot of it is really old, but they can not only take in that information, but also any like new information with things that they're putting out there. And so the combination of being able to use like existing and new sensors and technology is like really powerful.
And they're already trained. Like the reason why the AI piece is so important in this is they are training it like an AI model. Like they've already taken 260,000 hours of soldier feedback and they're incorporating that into the model. And the goal when it launches is that, like, let's say the three of us are on the battlefield and we're like fighting for the okay, that's not a realistic scenario.
Wait, I like it. Keep going.
And basically it's like a Chinese drone is like coming
like, for my end, I see it.
yeah, coming. Like Priya will see it, but then like the AI also sees it.
Yeah.
And like the AI will be able to look at the drone. Like let's say like at some point like we can see the drone.
No, but even if we can't see the drone, the AI will tell us to duck as well.
Right, but let's say it's like a typical Chinese surveillance drone and it's
Yeah.
like not something to worry about.
Yeah.
Versus it's like a drone that commonly strikes. I'm going to be totally not honest. I don't even know that those are different, but I'm assuming they are. Like, but there's like different levels of like code red, basically, right? In the battlefield, there's a ton of different inputs. And the goal of the AI is it's going to be able to filter through all of the signals and only tell you the most important things.
Yeah, like synthesize the information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually, it'll probably have a lot of data on how good people are too.
Yeah.
Like when you're looking to promote people in the army.
for sure, yeah.
And it like, it's basically surveilling them back too, right?
Oh, for sure.
Because people do a lot of like things in
Yeah.
a time of war.
Oh,
Yeah.
people do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other part of this, which why Anduril is suited to win, is because Palmer Luckey is great at VR. I mean, Palmer Luckey started Oculus and it did really well. So you also have someone who's an expert in AR VR and has been doing it for like many years. And so I'm sure, like, I mean, when you put on Oculus, it's not dizzying at all.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, I've never really like,
No,
okay,
but it's a way harder problem in the military.
I know. I'm dumbing it down, but I will say, like, okay, I don't know if this is going to be a stupid question, but why did the government like give it to Microsoft if Microsoft was never a leader in AR VR? Like, I would think
Because there was no one to give the contract to that was a leader in AR VR. Like
Apple or
well,
like
it would be
Google.
like Meta. They didn't
or
want to
Meta.
work with the government. First of
Oh.
all, like I don't even know if they bid on it. It wasn't like cool to work for the military. Like all these big tech companies, employees at the time were like, "We're gonna quit if you take like any." Like Google literally took like like
there
Google
was like
took
that whole thing.
one contract where they were just like labeling data. They weren't even building anything. And the employees like wrote an open letter being like,
I
we're going to leave.
remember that.
Like no one, like Anduril wanted to, which makes sense because that's like the whole mission of the company.
Yeah.
And I guess like Microsoft had a division that was like down to do it. I don't know who the other bidders were, but I don't think it was cool to build in the defense tech space. And I honestly think that was a factor.
That makes sense. Because that was my first question.
Yeah, but it is pretty interesting. Like a lot of headsets or even, what was it? IVAS, the first one?
Yeah.
Part of the big issue was like connectivity because like all the signals from the glasses were like needed to either be connected to internet or like somehow get fed back into the system versus like the new version that Anduril's making is all like based on local compute, so it doesn't need connectivity, which I feel like is a big difference between like the consumer use case and the military use case.
Yeah, and like the fact that they're building like the full helmet and not just like an add-on or like a clip-on, because that was like another big issue.
Yeah, like Palmer Luckey was saying that the like clip-on is just like super annoying and like doesn't fit well.
Well, it also like comes off when you're in combat.
That's
like,
crazy.
Like you're like, because you have to like be building for the most extreme conditions. Like, and I feel like if you have like something clipped onto you, that's just not gonna last.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to get into was like the future of EagleEye, not just in the military, but also in law enforcement. So the vision is that not only like every part of the government that has some sort of like combative role, like you can think police officers, for example, will have a version of EagleEye, but it'll be like less intense. So like police officers might be wearing like Oakleys, and these Oakleys might be able to like literally identify you or see behind walls as well, which is kind of crazy. And to me, that's what's really scary, is if just like random police in public just like now have this superhuman ability. Like, I don't know if I trust that.
Yeah, well, it becomes difficult also because everyone in the US government is basically under the underlying assumption that if we're in a time of war, the people that we're fighting against don't really have rights, honestly. Like, the only rights they have is international law, which is like regularly broken. But if you have police using it, then like US citizens or people in general are supposed to have a good amount
Of rights.
Yeah.
Like if a police like comes to your house, but they don't have a warrant to actually go in your house, and you pretend you don't hear them,
And they
know you're there.
They know you're there because you're like, yeah.
Like, or like if they ask if someone's home and you're like, oh, I'm the only one home, but they can see that there's another person. Yeah.
That's the part that I don't like.
Yeah, I do think there obviously will be situations where it's really helpful. Like, I know, so like recently when the Democratic lawmaker was shot, there was like something where like the next house that the killer went to, like the police were there, but they like went to the wrong area or something. And I remember reading the article, and I feel like something like this would have solved that issue. But yeah, to your point, like I'm sure it's not going to necessarily be a high priority to them to make sure that it's used.
Yeah, like there'll just be like so much misuse of it.
Yeah.
I feel like I can literally predict like an entire like social media moment on this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What's fascinating, or I was reading Palmer Luckey's interview where he says that he could see police officers with like Oakleys, and he was asked about the consumer use case because they're like, why don't you just sell it to consumers then too? And he was like, yeah, like the libertarian in me wants to, but it feels like that's like a bad idea.
Wait, this is what you've been asking for, Annika. Literally identify any person.
Don't cancel me. I've been asking for like what like Meta has built, or like what Google is building
with facial recognition,
VR glasses, because literally on a weekly basis I have some incident where I don't remember who someone is, or I like see them.
No, it would be so helpful.
It just happened to me yesterday, so it would be helpful. All I want is if I've seen you before, online or in person, it tells me like, hey, you met this person at an event 3 weeks ago, and like this is what you talked about.
Living in San Francisco, everyone's just gonna be green. You're gonna have met every single person before.
I honestly just want reverse image search for people, because there's so many times where there's like a person in a photo where I'm like, I feel like I know that person.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Totally.
Like literally, like yesterday, so this is definitely getting cut out, but it's okay. We need to cut all of that out.
Yeah, no shit.
Can't have that on the pod.
There was also a huge controversy where Reuters covered EagleEye and basically said that it wasn't meeting different security requirements, and then Palmer Luckey like really clowned them because he was like, that was a prototype, like we haven't even released it yet.
Yeah, I do kind of agree with that. Like it is a prototype, because like I think in the article they were super concerned about like data privacy and data getting out there, and I feel like that is the type of thing where like if you're not feeding it like real information, it's fine. Like you
but
can
also
put
like what
whatever.
data, like military data.
Well, because they were basically like, imagine if like your helmet gets taken off like in combat or whatever, or like let's say someone dies and someone from like the opposing side takes your helmet and puts it on, they'll have access to your entire.
Oh, well, they're probably years away from that.
Yeah, I was gonna say like,
because like it's like March until they like even to start delivering the helmets.
Yeah,
and then there's like a year of like calibrating the helmets.
I agree. Yeah. I agree.
Like I feel like media is very bad at covering data privacy. That's like why this whole thing happened with Aura and Palantir as well.
It's not that they
had to debunk it.
It's not that they're bad. They're just looking for views. they like,
Yeah, like the incentives aren't aligned.
The incentives aren't aligned, but I
Yeah.
think sometimes they also genuinely don't understand.
no, I
Oh, you
think,
think they're doing it on purpose?
yeah.
Wait, I think part of it is they don't dig deep enough into it, because like it's
Maybe
like
it's both.
Wait, no, but I think even if you were to dig deep into it, you would still frame it like that because you're just trying to
that's
get
fair.
views.
Maybe it's like the journalist kind of knows, but then I definitely don't think the general public, when they read it,
Yeah.
knows.
Oh,
Like, they
yeah.
for sure
That
know.
they don't know.
But it is like tough because I feel like some of the concerns that the journalists bring up, like data privacy or like ethicalness of things, like are important conversations to have, but they just make it a non-starter when they don't even have a basic level of understanding.
yeah.
Well, on that
Well, that's
note,
what that's what we're here for.
That's why we're here.
yeah.
Yeah, but
We're
I
not
did
paid.
think that like the article was very hypothetical and it brought up valid concerns. I just think it's not a valid concern when you're
No.
at a prototyping
Phase, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Should we move on to Zepto?
Yes.
Zepto's gonna get our check.
Oh, it's gonna get your check.
Oh, is it not getting your
No, it
check?
is.
It's for sure getting my check.
Yeah, it's getting
Yeah,
my check.
I
I'm
do.
like after like listening to a bunch of interviews on the founder, I was like, I really like this guy. Like I think he's gonna make a bunch of money.
Wait, do you want to come on?
He's nice.
No, they're just like really down to earth like brown boys. Like I don't know how to sorry.
Our favorite.
We need one of those.
Cool, yeah.
Yeah, so Zepto just raised $450 million at a $7 billion valuation led by the California Public Employees Retirement System,
CalPERS.
which is so funny. We'll talk about why that is later. But a TLDR on the company, they're a quick commerce company that delivers groceries and other products in under 10 minutes. So it's like kind of similar to GoPuff, but like kind of dissimilar in other ways. So we're going to talk about it. And they basically supply all of this by having a network of dark stores, which are basically just like small local micro warehouses where they supply everything that they then have drivers come pick up and deliver to your house. And yeah, that's like the TLDR on their business.
I love GoPuff.
Yeah, I know you always go Puff.
I love GoPuff. I literally am a premium member.
You are.
What's really interesting also about this story with Zepto is that delivery has been tried in India a bunch of times, and there's not been many companies that could make it work. And a key component of this is that most stores are within a really close radius of the Indian home, and people are going to the grocery store 4 times more than the average American. So if you think about American suburb life, like there's these big box stores, you take your car, you drive 20 minutes to it, versus in India it's like you walk 10 minutes to get your grocery store, or you go like send someone to go get something. And so like the value prop of like what a normal GoPuff or like DoorDash delivery system looks like in the US isn't really that enticing in India. And so what Zepto found was that getting under 10 minutes is the only way people will actually use this thing, because it's like not worth it otherwise. Otherwise
Yeah,
you just
you
like
can
walk
just
and
go
go get
get
the
it,
thing. Yeah. And so it's like you're already pretty hyper efficient, so bringing more efficiency was going to be really hard. And so a lot of their early years was very unprofitable and just trying to find PMF to get like that scale.
They said they almost didn't make it.
Yeah, I mean they were just like burning cash. I mean, now they're not burning cash as much anymore. But yeah, this, and then
Like they actually originally were trying to be a software / delivery provider for these corner stores.
yeah.
And then they realized that they're better off owning the whole stack.
Well, India's infrastructure is not great. So a lot of these like the little mom and pop stores don't keep track of their stock. Like you can't really say like, oh yeah, there's 10 in stock and now there's 9. And so like the reliability of it was terrible. So they were just like, we cannot go with the store to house delivery model. We
I'm
have
just
to
like imagining this in India.
Yeah.
Like being in India, like you would have no idea.
yeah, you don't know what's in stock. And so
They
they're
don't
like,
know what's in stock. No one knows what's in stock.
yeah, like they basically were like, we cannot rely on Indian infrastructure. Like we just have to build our own. That's why they came up with the dark store model, which is they just like have warehouses literally everywhere, and they just control the quality of what's in those warehouses and have like better systems to track what's going on.
And India is obviously very dense, so you can service a lot of people by just having like one dark store. And it seems like an insane operational issue that they've solved. Like I was reading one article about this reporter that was watching a delivery person, and he was like, it's actually like a KPI for them how many seconds they spend in the warehouse, and they take like 90 seconds and they like run. He like the reporter was supposed to follow the guy, and he was like, I wasn't able to.
But yeah, this played really nicely also with the smartphone boom in India as well.
Yeah. So basically, It's interesting because one of the questions was like, why India, and like why did it become such a big deal now? Because I feel like in the US, like this concept has been around for a long time. And so I like looked into it, and basically like India has historically been behind on smartphone usage in general. So like in 2016, 64% of the US had a smartphone, and that at the same time comparatively only 22% of the Indian population had a smartphone. So there was just like way less market penetration, and the reason for that was because mobile data in India was super expensive. And so per gigabyte of data was like $3 to $4 per gigabyte. In the US, it's like $8 to $10. So it's actually more expensive in the US, but wages in India are 1/20th. Like the average Indian wage is 1/20th of what the average American wage is. And so like comparatively, that is just like so expensive that most people could not afford to pay for like a mobile data plan. And then in 2016, Reliance, who's like the huge Indian conglomerate, like literally owns all of India infrastructure, came in and built Jio, which is basically like a 4G like network, like a telecom network. And so they installed like 4G across the entire country, where like traditionally they were on like 2G, 3G. And so like they didn't have to have all of that infrastructure, and they were able to make the per gigabyte cost go down to 20 to 30 cents, which is insane for them. And like on top of that, they started giving away these like mobile plans for free. And so with all of that combined, people actually like had access to the internet in a way that they like never had access to before. And even today, they're like the cheapest mobile data market by 30 to 50x. Like and so all this basically just meant that there was a huge smartphone boom in India, and it's estimated that now 85% of Indian households have a smartphone. So basically, like while the US plateaued in like 2017, 2018, everyone has a smartphone more or less. The Indian economy is like continuing to grow in this space. And it's also interesting because a lot of India wasn't connected and didn't have access to the internet, things weren't built out for like laptops. Like I feel like for us, everything is built out for the laptop, but they're like a very mobile first country, and it's because people just literally didn't have access to the internet.
Well, like I feel like it's because a large part of the population isn't involved in computer work.
Yeah,
so it makes sense.
Yeah, they're just like so disconnected. But now India like loves their scrolling. Yeah, like they love scrolling reels.
Apparently TikTok just got released in India.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I just thought it was banned.
It was banned, and then I guess it got unbanned.
Yeah.
And they didn't announce it. Like, people just started realizing they could get it one day. But by the way, I saw this on TikTok, so if it's wrong, don't say that we lied.
And then I think the other thing that like enabled the growth of this and everything else is like India's unified payments interface. It was also launched in 2016. So all this kind of happened at the same time by the National Payments Corporation of India, and it made it really easy for anyone with a smartphone to like send or receive money. It's basically just like Venmo or Cash App, but in one app that's controlled by the government. Yeah.
Wait, have you guys been to Kirana's?
No.
What?
Oh, that's like the store. Like the corner stores.
Pop shop. I mean, yeah. Like
Kirana means mom and pop in Hindi.
Oh.
Like I've been to stores in India, yeah.
No, like I didn't know if they have like a different vibe. Like, you know how in Thailand it's like the 7-Elevens, like you can get a lot
It's not like the 7-Eleven.
It's not like the 7-Eleven.
I thought you guys could give like a primary account, but I guess not.
It's not like that.
I've been trying to inject little personal anecdotes into this section, and it's not been going well.
Why? Because it's about India?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've never done an Indian company before.
No, we haven't.
We have not, yeah.
That's probably led to like a bunch of companies looking into the delivery space and figuring out how to do it. And Zepto just took the let's not be profitable approach, which ended up winning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have scale in India. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like that's the one thing that you have that you don't always necessarily have in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys look at how profitable they are now? Because I looked at their average order value is still only $5, and then 50 cents of that is labor costs.
Okay, well, basically to wrap all of this up, UPI is important because it made people really like trust online payments. So not only was it like free and fast, but also it was like trustworthy because it was through the government. And so the combination of like cheap data bringing hundreds of million people
everyone wants to go
combined with the fact that people trusted.
Well, the idea is like they'll be profitable by then. But they currently aren't
that like laid the foundation for a company like this
into like why they need more funding. And I think the base of this funding is that they want to build more dark stores, so just expand their network. But the other thing is that they're going beyond food. So they're going into like cafes. So they call it Zepto cafes, where they're delivering like chai probably to some extent. And then they're also going into beauty. And they're doing this thing called like process mining, where they're just like trying to figure out what people are searching for. And they're trying to build verticals for those searches. So they noticed like lipstick just kind of like took off out of nowhere. And they were like, okay, well, let's go into beauty.
Let's give you lipstick. You want lipstick? I'll give you lipstick.
Yeah. And like the way the founders are thinking about this, they were like, this last year was tough because they were hitting this point where a lot of investors, especially in India, were like, great, like you did well. Like, why don't we just like chill and focus on profitability and stay at the size? The founders are Indian, right? But they went to YC and they saw like the vibe of Silicon Valley, which is like, no, we're not going to be a $5 billion company. We're going to be like a $50-100 billion company. And so the founders, they have their eyes set on being the next Amazon, essentially, and delivering anything possible. And at that point, like, they want to go global and start to compete with Amazon in the US and figuring out delivery that fast. And so that's like their big vision.
I don't know if I'm that bullish on that.
I don't know if I'm that bullish because,
but
like,
India's a huge market.
Yeah, but I'm that bullish within India.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
Which I think is still another like X
yeah, it's a big
away.
market.
Yeah,
the quick commerce market is 40 billion by 2030.
Yeah.
So. And then we also were kind of like, oh, CalPERS isn't like a VC fund name that we've heard before. No. Okay. Basically, they're a pension fund and they're invested in other like tier 1 VC companies, like for example, Lightspeed and GC. And I think they want to go more into direct investing. I'm honestly not that educated on pension funds, but
pension funds do a lot of growth investing.
Yeah, like my understanding
through others, right?
Through others,
they're like LPs, yeah.
But so I guess like they have to pay fees. Like I get that they want, if you cut like General Catalyst out of the deal, then it's a higher return for you because you're not paying them fees.
Maybe it's also just like someone's Indian who runs a pension fund and is like our first investment.
Yeah. They do manage like a ton of money. They manage $450 billion because it makes sense that California has the largest pension fund for over 2 million people. And I don't know, the reasoning that they gave was that like the Indian economy is growing faster than the United States. The digital consumer market is really big. And so it was like a clear investment play.
I think there's also pressure on them to have better returns because apparently for like a decade, they called it the lost decade because they didn't have good returns.
Oh, I was going to say another factor is that Zepto probably cares to take the best terms rather than like the best name.
Well, they already have good names. Like they already have Lightspeed and GC.
Yeah, and they also don't need to hire talent in the US. I think is a big part of it. Because I think name means a lot for at least hiring and expanding your talent pool in the US. But because they're an Indian-based company, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know though, because like their other rounds were like led by like Lightspeed and General Catalyst.
But I'm sure they don't need it anymore.
When asked the biggest mistake he made, he did say his hiring, which I thought was kind of crazy. Like I was listening to the Gary Tan interview and he asked him the biggest mistake he made and he said like some of his early hires. And I've honestly never heard a founder say that before.
Well, that's valid if they don't work there anymore.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not valid. I just feel like usually founders gas up their team even if there's like nothing to gas up. He did a good job of being like, now we have like a really good team. I just have never heard a founder say that.
I mean, he's also really young.
That he is. They dropped out of Stanford.
Yeah, they were like 19 when they started this company. So,
well, that's average now.
Oh, we're way below the average.
Yeah, we're washed. But anyways, we also wanted to talk about the Indian startup scene as a whole because it's turned into the second largest startup scene in the world.
Third after US and China.
Sorry, I meant to say third. Like I have third written down, but the word that came out of my mouth was
It'd be nice if it was second. I don't know if it can compete with the US and China right now, but I definitely do think it's getting there.
Well, if we stop brain draining them, maybe they would get there. I also think that like the startups in India need to approach problems that we see in America very differently. Like as we see here with Zepto, like their business model is different. And I think a lot of investors are realizing that the way you run a business in India is like obviously not the same as the way you run a business in the US, but doesn't mean money can't be made.
That can also mean there's some low hanging fruit, right? Like you can create the GoPuff of India. You can create like the X of India. Yeah. Like for example, one of my friends that is into like building startups and stuff is from a country in Africa. And like a lot of times in college when you talk about ideas, he'd be like, oh, Stripe for like this area in Africa, which I think someone's done now. But like a lot of the like classic companies we think about, like Airbnb or whatever, obviously a lot of them have expanded into India and China and like Africa, but some of them haven't. And some of their business models, the same way we see with Zepto versus like Amazon, just aren't optimized for the differences in that country.
And on the brain drain point, like I think a lot of young people are choosing to stay in India. I mean, like, there's the whole H-1B stuff and all of that, but even like that aside, I think like the Indian market for tech startups has been booming, and people are more willing to actually like stay there and make a name for themselves. Like, I think like IIT did a survey where they basically saw that there was like a 30% drop in graduates choosing jobs abroad versus like the previous 5 years or something like that. And I do think as there are more young people coming up and growing up in India, like, I do think that they'll be able to accomplish a lot more. Because I also think that like the new generation of kids and like even us, like, we're so much more connected to the rest of the world than anyone else has ever been in the past. And so like you see all of these ideas of what people are doing in other places and you're like, why can't I just do that here?
Yeah.
And like I just think the US isn't as appealing as it used to be. Yeah.
Cool. Well, on that note, we're done for today.
Dude, Maya's so ready to get out of here.
I'm just tired.
Really?
I have to drive home.
Yeah, that's tough.
Today?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going tomorrow.
I have to go today. So, Colts to go.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.